Once again, Christian greetings to all our valued listeners and viewers throughout the whole world, more particularly to all Shepherd's Rod believers, and most especially to our beloved brothers and sisters in the United States of America. Good evening, and may the good Lord bless you, brothers and sisters. This is our episode number 12 on the subject, the beast and its image. And in studying this subject, the most important part that we should not overlook is the spiritual side. Now, I would like to read to you 1 SR 215. It says, the exile of the Pope in 1798 was only a sign of the material side of the wound, showing that the blow had been delivered, but the spiritual side of the truth has been altogether overlooked. 1 SR, page 215. And secondly, the message of the third angel deals only two main subjects. The mediatorial work of Jesus Christ in the heavenly sanctuary, and then concerning the beast revelation. Why is it that the message of the third angel is focusing into these two main subjects? I think it can be easily understood that since the plan of redemption, according to SR 187, was revealed through the sanctuary construction and service, to SR 187, it says, in order to make a proper application of the seven seals, we must have a better understanding of the heavenly sanctuary service, its origin, and the object of its existence, as taught by the early sanctuary built by Moses. Hebrews chapter 8, verse 5. In the sanctuary construction and service is revealed the plan of salvation. And the beast revelation cometh from God. It is the chosen medium of God to expose the entire schemes of the devil, or his deception. And the focal point of such deception is to darken the understanding of God's people concerning Christ's mediatorial work in the heavenly sanctuary. And that statement unruling of the scroll is more definitely applied in the subject concerning the beast. Here in volume 6, on page 17, it says, "The light we have received upon the third angel's message is the true light. The mark of the beast is exactly what it has been proclaimed to be. But not all in regard to this matter is yet understood, nor will it be understood until the unrolling of the scroll." Volume 6, page 17. And I do fully believe that the main objective of Satan, of such complete satanic scheme, is to deceive the very elect, the 144,000. Now let us read again 1 SR 214. It says here, "The intention of the complete satanic scheme is to deceive the whole world. The statement made by Christ is true, that he, Satan, will try to deceive even the very elect, the 144,000, if it were possible." 1 SR page 214. We need to ever remember, brothers and sisters, that although, according to the Shepherd's Rod, that Satan knows how to deceive. It says here in 2 SR 105, Satan knows how to deceive so that it cannot be easily detected. He studies the inclination of the people, and the thing which appeals most, he sets as a trap. Because the generation is trusting in human intellect and are willing that others should think for them, the devil will present to this class the most dazzling personality the world has ever looked upon, say the apostle, and no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. But at the same time, you should not, however, forget that God also knows how to save. Here in 2TG number 6, page 21, it says, "God knows how to save. Saving is his chief concern." So there are two unseen supernatural powers that move upon this world. The power of the darkness, this is the power of Satan, and the power of Jesus Christ, brothers and sisters. And that's why B.T. Hotep says in 2SR, on page 70, it says, God's people must learn to detect the voice of the Spirit of Christ as well as the spirit of Satan. When the two clash, the one will strive for obedience to God's word, but the other will excuse the sin and sympathize with the sinner. In this way, Satan gains ground, for the sinner loves his sin. To us our page 70. Now, remember, according to our reading in 2SR 105, that the deception of Satan is very hard to detect. According to 2SR page 95, it says here, 2SR page 95, a spiritual deception has its beginning from a being other than human. Therefore, the scheme is so cunning that it cannot be discerned by finite observation. This kind of deception can only be recognized under the close scrutiny of the Holy Word of God and by the aid of His Spirit. To us our page 95. And since only God knows how to defeat Satan, then we need to adapt, or we need to employ the chosen medium bestowed by God unto us to defeat the enemy of inspiration. And accordingly, into us our page 10, saying, while the enemy has succeeded in confusing the written word, or the written word of God, God lightens the earth with His glory by these symbolic revelations, and by which He discloses the entire truth and uncovers the traps of the devil. Thus, through types and symbols, He makes wise the simple and confounds the prudent, by showing that where there is no type, there is no truth. Now, let us focus our attention to the symbolic revelation, how God exposed the entire deception of Satan by this symbolic revelation, the beast. Brothers and sisters, and we need only to carefully decipher its symbols. Remember, the shepherd's rod plainly told us in 2SR 154, saying, it is of great importance that these things be correctly understood, for by the knowledge of the truth only can God lead His people on to victory. And in 2SR page 194, it says, unless the meaning of every symbol is fittingly explained so that it cannot be contradicted, a present truth lesson with special significance derived, the interpretation cannot be dependable, and there can be no truth in it. God does not make vain repetitions, neither would he waste the time of his servants to write them. Therefore, every little symbol has its meaning and reveals a great truth. So every little symbol, there must be an absolute meaning and reveals a great truth. That admonition given by B.T. Hotep that in studying the scriptures, we need to observe the grammatical rule. That admonition is even more definitely applied in the subject, the beast. Now, let us read here in 2SR page 117 and 118. It says here, 2SR page 117 and 118. As the explanation of the symbolical prophecy is first understood at this present time, and as such prophecies are only timely revealed, and the lesson derived concerns this present generation, then the prediction is present truth. And then it says, therefore, we must consider the use of the biblical past and present tense. This grammatical rule is followed in the scriptures, and it is one way to recognize present truth. So that is the admonition, that in studying the beast revelation, grammatical rule must be strictly followed, and it is one way to recognize present truth. Now, let us first gradually apply some divine principles that had been laid down by the Shepherd's Rod. Now, for example, here in 2SR page 88, saying, where systems and governments do not all exist at the same time, the symbols show their consecutive order. Another factor to be noted that every symbol of the entire procession of the beast point out facts that were to transpire within the period represented by each beast, and not one of them refers to anything in the past, save the hereditary ancestral characteristics. The statement, save the hereditary ancestral characteristics, in that reading, we need to carefully differentiate the period of time by which it is only portraying the hereditary ancestral characteristics, which is, we commonly call it as the groundwork. The statement in track number 5 on page 32, track number 5, page 32, saying, the statements which must shortly come to pass, Revelation 1 verse 1, and I will show thee things which must be hereafter, Revelation 4 verse 1, go to say that the revelation is given with the one particular object in view, of showing the things lying not behind, but ahead of John's time, with reference being made only incidentally to the past, in order to lay the necessary foundation upon which to build the future. This statement must be applied to the entire book of Revelation, the 22 chapters, that each subject, there must be groundwork and prophetic main event, or the particular object in view. To the subject, 7 trumpets, 7 seals, and with all others, let us distinctly separate the groundwork and the particular object in view. But in more specific terms, the particular object in view must be pointing to 1844 onwards. Herein to us are on page 191, says, the door he saw opened is the veil between the holy and the most holy, for there is no other that had been kept close. Therefore, the word hereafter in chapter 4, verse 1, means from the time of the vision, pointing forward to 1844. And the same principle with the book of Daniel. The book of Daniel and the book of Revelation, the particular object in view is from 1844 onwards. So, here in the old symbolic code, let us read again in 3 symbolic code 8 to 10, page 8. The angel who instructed Daniel declared that the book would be closed until the time of the end. Therefore, in the time of the end, the book must be opened. The word does not say that the book is open either at the beginning or at the close of the time of the end, all at once or a little at a time, but simply in the period of the time of the end. However, history proves that the prophecies of Daniel were not all revealed at once, but slowly. The fact that we as yet do not understand the whole book proves that some parts of it are yet closed. Also, the fact that a large part of it is now understood makes it evident that we are living in the time of the end. This time must have begun when the book began to be opened, but if we must declare the beginning of that time, in more specific terms, it in a spatial sense began in the year 1844. The time of the end is the period just before the end of the world. 3 symbolic code 8 to 10, page 8. Now, since we will be studying the period or the entire period of the Christian era, I would like to read to you 2SR page 85 and page 86. Now it says here in 2SR pages 85 and 86, as the same number of horns appear on each succeeding beast, namely the nondescript in Daniel 7 verse 7, the leopard-like on Revelation 13 verse 1, and the scarlet-colored in Revelation 17 verse 3, representing the entire New Testament era. And we know that the New Testament era began in 31 AD, brothers and sisters, or from the crucifixion, right? As stated in track number 2 on page 13. It says here, let us read. So being of brass, the mountains denote that the church which they symbolize is in period number 3. And the fact that there is a third period presupposes two preceding periods, making in all 3 great divisions of time. The first from creation to the flood, the second from the flood to the crucifixion of Christ, and the third from the crucifixion to his second coming. Then it says, the Christian era is therefore the one to which the symbolical mountains of brass apply. Track number 2, page 13. So the Christian era, according to that reading, from the crucifixion that was in 31 AD onwards. So the statement in 2SR, page 85 and page 86, that the entire New Testament era is represented by these 3 beasts, the nondescript, the leopard-like, and the scarlet-colored, can be easily understood that the entire deception of Satan that he had employed in the period of Christian era, it was revealed by God through the symbolization of the beast, nondescript beast, leopard-like beast, and the scarlet-colored beast. And it is opposite to how God works in the entire New Testament era. It was illustrated by the woman on Revelation chapter 12, according to 2SR page 76, that the woman in the New Testament covers 3 divisions, right? So that is from the apostolic period, and then the Dark Ages, and at the time when the woman will be in conflict with the dragon. Now, let us now focus our attention to the beast revelation. We know that concerning the beast revelation, the principal revelation is found from the book of Daniel and the book of Revelation. So it is a subject, Daniel and the Revelation. Now let us go back again to our reading in 2SR to comprehend the entire meaning the beast revelation, brothers and sisters, we need to establish the divine principle as laid down by the shepherd's rod. Now, first, concerning the leopard-like beast, and not only the leopard-like beast, but as well as the scarlet-colored beast. There is a divine principle by which such divine principle is applied both to the leopard-like and the scarlet-colored beast. The first one is that in page 88, it is entitled Horns and Heads All Present. Now let us read the statement in page 88. Let us not overlook the fact that all horns, crowns, and heads are present on the beast. Therefore, whatever meaning is derived by the symbol, all must be in existence at the time his deadly wound was healed. Now, when or what period of time by which all the horns, the heads, and the crowns are already in existence, all of them are in existence. That is at the time when his deadly wound was healed. Now, let us go again to the paragraph that we already read. But I would like to read the portion saying, another factor to be noted that every symbol of the entire procession of the beast point out facts that were to transpire within the period represented by each beast, and not one of them refers to anything in the past save the hereditary ancestral characteristics. Now, what is the period represented by each beast? We need to establish first what is the period represented by each beast, brothers and sisters. But just focusing to the nondescript beast, leopard-like beast, and scarlet-colored beast. The period represented by each beast is a period of a universal system. So, we should not forget that, brothers and sisters. The period represented by each beast, the nondescript, the leopard-like, and the scarlet-colored, is a period of a universal system. Now, let us read again the statement in to us are page 85 and page 86. It says, as the same number of horns appear on each succeeding beast, reading to SR page 85, namely the nondescript, Daniel 7 verse 7, the leopard-like, Revelation 13 verse 1, the scarlet-colored, Revelation 17 verse 3, representing the entire New Testament era. It is evident by the facts gathered that the number of horns are intended to denote universal, as they are absent from the beast of Revelation 13 verse 11 to 18. It verifies the fact that the two-horned beast denotes a local system. Therefore, it is unquestionably clear that the fixed number of horns, 10, are designed to universally symbolize the peoples and governments. Follow the chart on page 84. Inasmuch as the lion, the bear, the four-headed leopard, and the nondescript beast, the symbols of Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome, are linked to each other, the unbreakable chain of beasts make it impossible for another universal beast system to intersect their consecutive order. Consequently, the leopard-like beast of Revelation 13 verses 1 to 9 must follow the non-discrete beast, Rome. The same principle in the scarlet-colored, as read to SR page 112. It says to SR page 112. It is impossible to SR 112. It is impossible for another universal beast to intersect their unbreakable chain of 5 links. Such an act would be an attempt to overthrow prophecy and history. Therefore, the only period he can possibly represent would be the one after the deadly wound of the leopard-like is healed, becoming a 6th universal beast. Now, in these 2 pages, 2SR page 86 and 2SR 112, the divine principle is that these universal beasts never intersect each other. It is consecutive. And it says unbreakable chain. The statement unbreakable chain, there is no gap, brothers and sisters, that when the period of the other ended, immediately follow the next beast. That's what it means by unbreakable chain. But the thing is that they never overlap each other in reigning as a universal beast. At the time when, for example, historically, the Roman Empire did not begin on 27 BC. Brothers and sisters, or neither 63 BC. But the absolute fact is that even in 168 BC, at the time when the Grecian Empire ended, brothers and sisters, it doesn't mean that the Roman Empire did not as yet in existence at that time. But rather, the shepherd's rod is only trying to tell us that although the each beast, their existence overlap each other, but concerning the time when such beast became a universal empire, it did not overlap logically, because how could such beast be considered as a universal empire while the other beast is still reigning as a universal empire? For example, the Babylonian Empire from 608 BC to 538 BC. In that period of time, the Medo-Persian Empire already in existence. But the fact is that it did not reign as a universal empire not until in 536 BC when the kingdom of Babylon ended. So, let us distinctly separate the existence of each beast and to the time when the beast became a universal empire. And that is the focal point of the beast revelation. At the time when such beast became a universal empire, that is the main prophetic event. The time when such beast did not as yet reign as a universal empire, that is the time by which it is called by the shepherd's rod the unfolding process. Or another term used by the shepherd's rod, the formation of the beast. Now, let us read 2SR in page 86. Let us read the statement. 2SR, page 86, it says, since the evidence revealed by the symbol cannot be questioned, the leopard-like beast assumes the period after the fall of imperial Rome, corresponding to the feet and toes, iron and clay, of the great image in Daniel chapter 2. In other words, the leopard-like beast arrives with the closing period represented by the first stage of the nondescript beast, while the second stage of the latter, which is the papal Rome, continues up to 1798. Consequently, the unfolding process of the one overlaps the downward course of the other. To John, the leopard-like beast was shown not in its unfolding process, but rather in its closing act. For he says, and his deadly wound was healed. I saw in vision the beast after the deadly wound had been healed, for he uses the past tense was. He saw in vision, rather. Now, here the shepherd's rod is definitely telling us that when God gave the vision to John the Beloved, it is already the closing act of the beast. God did not show to John the unfolding process of the beast or the time of the formation of the beast. And for sure, that statement in the Bible in Revelation chapter 1, verse 1, let us read. Revelation chapter 1, verse 1, it says, the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave unto him to show unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass. And he sent and signified it by his angel unto his servant John. Now notice here in Revelation chapter 1, verse 1, the first one that had been mentioned is John the Beloved, the pronoun him. The revelation of Jesus Christ which God gave unto him. So that is John the Beloved. And then it says, to show unto his servants. It was inscribed in plural form. To show unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass. So the servants mentioned here must be the prophets that God raised up from 1844 onwards. Because that is the time by which God promised that the book of Revelation will be understood. And one among them is B.T. Hotep. We have Sister White, Wagoner, and Alonzo Jones, and then B.T. Hotep. But even more particularly to the Shepherd's Rod publications, because I remember that statement in the old symbolic code. It says here, and we know that that is the reality. Here in 2 symbolic code, number 2, page 5. 2 symbolic code, number 2, page 5. It says, the shepherd's rod has led us to a greater knowledge in many Bible themes than any book we have ever had, showing that God is leading us day by day to a greater knowledge of His mysteries. We should be willing to walk in the light which we now have until it brings us face to face with this desired information into a perfect knowledge of all things, instead of stepping off from the path of light and into darkness, just because He does not show us everything all at once, or because we cannot comprehend it all in a moment. 2 symbolic code number 2, page 5. But I would like to focus that portion that the shepherd's rod has led us to a greater knowledge in many Bible themes than any book we have ever had. 2 symbolic code number 2, page 5. And we know that that is the reality. And that is the reason why the shepherd's rod admonishes us to teach only in the light of the rod. It says here in Answerer number 5, page 56, teach only in the light of the rod those passages which in one way or another need to be interpreted. Thus only will all present truth believers ever become of the same mind, seeing eye to eye, and speaking the same things. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 10, and 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 8, Isaiah 52, verse 8. Answerer number 5, page 56. Now, to repeat again, let us go back to our main subject, focusing first to the leopard-like beast. The vision that was shown by God to John in Revelation 13, verses 1 to 10, concerning the leopard-like beast, is only the closing act of the leopard-like beast, not in its unfolding process, according to our reading in 2SR page 86. But the unfolding process of the leopard-like beast, the understanding was given by God to his servant, Brother Halter. This is the Shepherd's Rod publication, brothers and sisters. Now, we will now be studying the unfolding process, and more particularly to the main prophetic event. The main prophetic event is the closing act of the leopard-like beast. Now, for example, I would like to read to you. Here in, I think, 12 symbolic code, it says here, let's read the statement. 12 symbolic code number 1 on page 9. It says, it can be said that when this association of Isaiah 8 is urged, and we commonly call it as the Assyrian Confederacy, it can be said that when this association of Isaiah 8 is urged, the leopard-like beast of Revelation 13 is about to pass off, and the other period represented by the scarlet-colored beast of Revelation 17 is about to come on the stage of action. With the fall of Assyria, the land of promise is also prepared for God's people to come, and there set up a place for those who are to be called out of Babylon, to come where there are neither sin nor sinners. Those are God's plans. Now, the statement here is very plain in 12 symbolic code number 1, page 9, that the scarlet-colored beast of Revelation 17 will not come on the stage of action, not until the period of the leopard-like beast is passed off. Now, the period of the leopard-like beast will pass off at the time when this association predicted in Isaiah chapter 8 is urged. Now, brothers and sisters, we already read that the period of the leopard-like beast commenced in 1929. But it seems that there is contradiction in 2SR 114 and in 12 symbolic code number 1, page 9. No, it is not contradiction, but the period that commenced in 1929 concerning the scarlet-colored beast is the beginning of the unfolding process of the scarlet-colored beast. But it is not the time when the scarlet-colored beast become a universal beast. Because at that time, the leopard-like beast is still reigning as a universal beast, brothers and sisters. And we already studied, brothers and sisters, that um, the the divine principle that they will never intersect each other because it is a consecutive order. Now, let us read 2SR 114. It says, the period represented by the scarlet-colored beast commenced in 1929, at which time the deadly one was healed. But his career is not fully developed until the woman shall sit upon his back. So the statement saying, but his career is not fully developed, meaning, but his period being a universal beast did not as yet arrive in 1929. Now, let us focus first to the leopard-like beast, brothers and sisters. The shepherd's rod, I would like to read here in 2TG number 17. Here in 2TG number 17, it says here on page 9. 2TG number 17, page 9. So let us read the statement here. The earth then, it says, the earth then points to a place away from the sea, and the opposite of what sea stands for. A country made up of inhabitants who have immigrated from elsewhere. The only such country or nation away from the old country and as influential as portrayed in these two Hundis that arises after the formation of the leopard-like beast in the Protestant period is the United States. Moreover, the United States is already a world power, and so we need not be guessing anymore. Now, here, brothers and sisters, the voice of inspiration says that the two horned beast arises after the formation of the leopard-like beast. Or in other words, brothers and sisters, at the time when the two horned beast arise, that is the time by which the leopard-like beast is completely formed. It is completely formed, brothers and sisters. Now, since we already knew that the two horned beast arises in 1798, brothers and sisters, so it is perfectly corroborating to the statement in 2TG number 17, page 9. Now, let us read in Great Controversy, page 440. The Great Controversy, page 440, it says, what nation of the New World was in 1798 rising into power, giving promise of strength and greatness, and attracting the attention of the world? The application of the symbols admits of no question. One nation, and only one, meets the specifications of this prophecy. It points unmistakably to the United States of America. The Great Controversy 440. Now, in 2SR, I would like to read to you. 2SR page 108, it says, the two horned beast, as John beheld the vision with intense interest, his attention was directed to another striking object. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. Revelation 13, verse 11. Just about the time the second and last stage of the nondescript beast was to terminate, another earthly power was to come upon the stage of action. According to the vision, it is wonderful to note how accurate the symbols are, even to their proper time and order. The beast having lamb-like horns, promise of growth, is an unmistakably symbol of a nation, slowly arising as from a small plant to a mighty empire. Lamb-like is descriptive of the government arising in 1776 AD. See the Great Controversy, page 439 to 441. So, brothers and sisters, in 1776 AD, the United States of America is illustrated by a tiny seed. Or in other words, in 1776, it was illustrated that the United States of America are still under the ground, under the soil. And it did not rise up from the ground or from the soil, not until 1798, brothers and sisters. And that is why in the Great Controversy, it was illustrated as a tiny seed, brothers and sisters. Here in 441 on the Great Controversy, it says, the beast was seen coming up out of the earth, and according to the translators, the word here rendered coming up literally signifies to grow up or spring up as a plant. And as we have seen, the nation must arise in territory previously unoccupied. A prominent writer describing the rise of the United States speaks of the mystery of their coming forth from vacancy and says, like a silent seed, we grow into empire. The Great Controversy, page 441. But what we are trying to establish is the period of time when the leopard-like beast is already formed. And since the shepherd's rod already told us here in 2TG number 17, on page 9, that it is in the Protestant period. And we know the Protestant period is the period after the Dark Ages. Here in 2TG number 22, page 22, it says, following this came the Protestant period, the period of religious freedom, white thing. So following the Dark Ages came the Protestant period, 2TG 22, page 22. So that was in 1798 that America came out from the ground as a tiny seed and then gradually growing into a mighty plant, become a great and mighty empire, according to the illustration in the spirit of prophecy. Therefore, in 1798, brothers and sisters, that is the formation of the leopard-like beast. But what formation, brothers and sisters? Only pointing to the hereditary ancestral characteristics. Now, let us now gradually prove that in 1798, that is the time by which the leopard-like beast form all the hereditary ancestral characteristics. Or in other words, that is the time that the leopard-like beast completely inherit the of his ancestors. Now, I would like to read one SR. Here in one SR, page 200, let's read the statement. 212, 1 SR 212. And let us ponder deeply, brothers and sisters. It says, had the heads come one after another, like the beast of Daniel 7. It is concerning the leopard-like beast. The subject here is the leopard-like beast. Now, let's read again concerning the leopard-like beast. It says, had the heads come one after another, like the beast of Daniel 7, and the little horn after which there were plucked up, it would denote a successive form of existence. Since all 7 were in existence at the same time, the symbol reveals that all 7 systems must rule during the same period. Now, do not forget, brothers and sisters, that when does the leopard-like beast have all of them, the 10 horns, the 10 crowns, and the 7 heads? The answer is at the closing act of the beast, at the time when his deadly one was healed. Now let us read to us our page 88. It says, let us not overlook the fact that all horns, crowns, and heads are present on the beast. Therefore, whatever meaning is derived by the symbol, all must be in existence at the time his deadly one was healed. When does the horns, crowns, and heads, all of them are present on the beast? That is at the time his deadly one was healed. Now, we already read in 2 TG 17, page 9, that the formation of the leopard-like beast ended in 1798. Now, the question is, thus in 1798, his deadly one was healed? Therefore, what had been formed in 1798? Only the ancestral or hereditary ancestral characteristics. Now, let us continue reading in 1 SR 212. It says, these 7 heads cannot represent anything at any time before the fall of the Roman monarchy, for that which represents what took place before the fall of Rome is symbolized in the composition of the beast, excluding the 7 heads and 10 horns as set forth in the 2nd verse. So here, brothers and sisters, Revelation 13 was not arranged in its proper order. Revelation 13 verse 2 precedes Revelation 13 verse 1. Now let us read Revelation 13 verse 2. Revelation 13 verse 2. It says here, and the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. Now here in verse 2, it says, John the Beloved never states concerning the 10 horns as well as the 7 heads. Brothers and sisters, if we will be saying that verse 1 is the first one to be fulfilled, then verse 2 is the next fulfillment of this prophetic event, then we'll be saying that after the leopard-like beast obtained the 10 horns and obtained the 7 heads, it was dropped. It was dropped out. But the shepherds had plainly told us here in Jezreel letter number 8 on page I think page 11, brothers and sisters, it says, now since the wounded head, Jezreel letter number 8, page 11, now since the wounded head represents a church, a religious system, and since all 7 heads are on the beast at the same time, not coming up or dropping out one after another. So there was no such protected event that at the time when the 7 heads, the leopard-like beast, present on the beast, as well as the 10 horns, it is dropping one after another. But rather, B.T. Houghton is plainly telling here in 1 SR 212. Let us read again. 1 SR page 212. The 7 heads cannot represent anything at any time before the fall of the Roman monarchy. Now think it thoroughly, brothers and sisters. The 7 heads cannot represent anything at any time before the fall of the Roman monarchy. The fall of the Roman monarchy, it was fallen in 1798. Brothers and sisters. Now, if the statement says that the 7 heads cannot refer to anything, or whatever religious system, whatever the religious organization from 1798 backward, it could not be the 7 heads of the leopard-like beast. Or in other words, we need to distinctly study, brothers and sisters, the 7 heads of the leopard-like beast himself, and the 7 heads of the leopard-like beast by which it was inherited only from or a hereditary ancestral characteristics. For example, brothers and sisters, the statement, I would like to, the same principle to the scarlet color beast. Here in 2SR page 112, let me read to you. It says, since the scarlet colored is the last in the symbolical procession of beasts, he must possess all the characteristics of his ancestors. The leopard-like beast, he did not possess all. The only thing that the leopard-like beast possessed are the 4 empires, brothers and sisters. But the scarlet-colored beast, he possessed all. And it says, the 10 horns of the nondescript beast, the 7 heads of the leopard-like, and his own unharmed heads shows that he comes on the stage of action after the deadly wound was healed. Now the statement, his own unharmed heads, the same divine principle, let us distinctly separate the time by which the leopard-like beast is only inheriting the seven heads of the leopard-like. Brothers and sisters, but the time when the scarlet-colored beast reign as a universal empire, that is the time by which he no longer inherit the seven heads of the leopard-like, but rather, that is the time by which the description, his own unharmed seven heads. Or in other words, on February 11, 1929, when the leopard-like beast, the wounded head was healed, it was inherited in 1929. The time by which the scarlet-colored beast assumed the period of the leopard-like. The same divine principle, when the leopard-like beast assumed the period of the first stage of the non-discrete beast. Brothers and sisters. And that is the time by which they were inheriting the hereditary ancestral characteristics. Now here, let us go back again. In 1SR page 212, it says, the seven heads, 1SR 212. So we need to study closely. What are the seven heads of the leopard-like beast, which is the main prophetic event by which the seven heads of the leopard-like exist the same period of time. But the seven heads by which inherited by the leopard-like from his ancestors, it is consecutive order. It did not exist the same period of time, as illustrated in 2SR page 107. Now, let us read here in 2SR page 107. It says, 2SR page 107. It would have been unwise and useless to devise this prophetic beast if the symbols would fail to reveal Protestantism as they do Catholicism. Before the 1,260 years ended in 1798, the four Protestant denominations were already in existence, namely the Lutheran, the Presbyterian, Methodist, and Christian, or it is called Baptist. But after 1798 came the First-day Adventists, and the Seventh-day Adventists from 1844 to 1929 completed his seven heads. So it is consecutive order, because the four Protestant denominations did not exist the same period of time. Lutheran, Presbyterian, Methodist, and Christian, and also the First-day Adventists, and also the Seventh-day Adventists. So that is not the main prophetic event concerning the leopard-like beast. Because the main prophetic event of the leopard-like beast, brothers and sisters, is that is the closing act of the leopard-like beast. And in that closing act of the leopard-like beast, all seven exist the same period of time. The statement exists the same period of time can be easily understood that that system, when it is established, when it is formulated, the seven heads, they are the entire constituent of that system. They are the one who formulated that system. That is why it exists the same period of time. Unlike with the period when the leopard-like beast is inheriting, assuming the period of the nondescript beast, um, first stage. Now let us read. And I do fully believe that we understand the word assume. Now here in 2SR page 86, let us read again the statement. It says, the leopard-like beast arises out of the sea, in the same manner as the four beasts before it. Daniel 7 verse 3. Therefore, the beast of Revelation 13 verses 1 to 9 is created from the result of war and commotion among the nations in the same manner as Babylon, Medo-Persia, Grecia, and Rome. Since the evidence revealed by the symbol cannot be questioned, the leopard-like beast assumes the period after the fall of imperial Rome, corresponding to the feet and toes, iron and clay of the great image in Daniel 2. Now, think it thoroughly. The entire period by which the leopard-like beast is only assuming the period of the first stage of the nondescript beast, and it corresponds to the entire period of the feet and toes, iron and clay of the great image in Daniel chapter 2. Now, let us now study closely the entire period by which the leopard-like beast is only assuming the period of the nondescript beast. He assumed the period of the nondescript beast. Or in other words, in reality, that is not the main prophetic event by which the time when the leopard-like beast is already reigning, no longer assuming the period of the nondescript beast, first stage. It is already his own period, the period of the leopard-like beast. Because it's very important to understand, brothers and sisters, the period of the leopard-like beast, so that we could understand the period of the scarlet-colored beast. Now, for example, let us read the Old Symbolic Code. Here in the Old Symbolic Code, 2 Symbolic Code number 10, page 12. 2 Symbolic Code number 10, page 12. Saints take his dominion. What is the meaning of the saints shall take away his dominion? To consume and to destroy it unto the end. Daniel 7 verse 26. This power whose dominion is to be taken away by the saints, John the Revelator so symbolized on the leopard-like beast of Revelation 13 as the head that was wounded. Therefore, the nondescript beast of Daniel's vision is the leopard-like beast of John's vision, varying only in the time it exists. And as the symbols of the nondescript beast of Daniel's vision carry us only up to 1798 AD, to the end of the period in which he was to wear out the saints, then it is on this side of 1798 in which period the saints are to take away his dominion, after his deadly wound is healed, that we must look for light on the subject by studying John's instead of Daniel's vision. As the power of the beast was broken down by 1798, and as the saints are to take his dominion, but as yet have not done so, it is evident that the dominion of Daniel 7 verse 26 is not the one during the 1,260-year period, but rather in the time when the two-horned beast of Revelation 13 verse 11 to 18 exercises his power and makes a likeness image to the beast. Hence the dominion which the saints are to take away is the dominion of the image of the beast, of which the prophet Haggai speaks in the following language. And I will overthrow the throne of kingdoms, and I will destroy the strength of the kingdoms of the heathen. Thus will the saints take away his dominion, to consume and to destroy it unto the end, and the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. Daniel 7 verse 26 and 27. Now, I would like to shorten this statement into symbolic code number 10, page 12, brothers and sisters. That the dominion by which the saints will take out from the leopard like this can be easily understood, that it points out to the living saints under his dominion, under his subjection, brothers and sisters. That is more pertaining to the 144,000 living saints, spiritual Israel. Because the scarlet-colored beast, it is a Babylon. That beast is Babylon. And the 144,000 will not be taken out from Babylon, brothers and sisters, but rather from Assyria. And we know that historically, that nation, which is Assyria, the same nation that becomes Babylon. From Assyria to Babylon. But before that nation will become Babylon, the 144,000 will be taken out first. And after the 144,000, spiritual Israel will be taken out, then that nation, that is the time by which the period of the scarlet-colored beast will actually begins, which is represented by Babylon. Now, so we need to study closely, brothers and sisters, concerning the subject of the leopard-like beast. Now, let us go back again to our reading. I would like to read 2SR, hoping God would help us this very important subject. Here in 2SR page 212, 112 brother. 2SR page 112, it says, it is concerning the scarlet-colored beast. Therefore, if this beast represents our world at the present time, would it not be unwise on the part of God if he should have neglected to foresee the present-day multiplicity of sects and the great confusion among Christendom, if the symbols by this beast fail to reveal the true condition of the churches? As the nondescript beast tells the fall of the church in the period he represents, so must the scarlet-colored. In fact, This is the principal reason why these prophetic gifts are presented. Now, to repeat again, brothers and sisters, 2SR 112, that paragraph is very, very important, brothers and sisters, that we need to study over and over again. First of all, brothers and sisters, we need to study the Bible and the Shepherd's Rod with a desire to understand what God really saying in that symbolical prophecy. We should not try to evade or to twist the meaning of the Word of God. Although in reality we cannot twist it, we cannot misconstrue, because it was guaranteed according to the Shepherd's Rod in 2SR 288. Written words can be misconstrued, but symbols cannot. That is very plain, right? In 2SR 288 it says, written words can be misconstrued, but symbols cannot. It says, written words can be misconstrued, but symbols cannot, thus making it possible for both learned and unlearned to immediately distinguish the difference between truth and error. So thus making it possible for both learned, and unlearned to immediately distinguish the difference between truth and error through symbols. Written words can be easily misconstrued by the devil, but he will have a hard time to twist the meaning of the symbols. In 1SR 124 it says, the picture tells the story. Symbols do not lie. Now, let us now study closely the symbolization of the leopard like beast, brothers and sisters. Now, I would like to read 2SR, page 87. It says, of the beast having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, John says, and I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death. The wounded head represents the papacy, wounded by Martin Luther, which was originally symbolized by the horn head of the nondescript beast, showing only the papal power and their authority. Now, I would like to quote some statement using the word originally. Now, for example, here in 2SR page 79 and page 80. In reality, the 12 stars on the woman's crown originally represented the 12 patriarchs. Later, the 12 tribes of fleshly Israel. After that, the 12 apostles. And last, the 12 tribes of spiritual Israel. 144,000. Thus, again, it proves number 4 to be an important number, and that by the woman, these 4 periods are represented. So the word originally, brothers and sisters, pointing to the primary application. In tract number 14, here in tract number 14 on page 6, it says, all of these counterparts then are but another scriptural intimation and confirmation of the age-old truth that history repeats itself, and on a much broader scale than in the original. track number 14, page 6. So in this reading, the word original is applied to the primary application. Now, let us now distinctly separate the wounded head, which is the original, the type, and the wounded head, which is the particular object in view, brothers and sisters. And we explained that several times according to answerer number 3. It is really very important that we need to repeat it again and again. That according to answerer number 3, on page 45, saying, answerer number 3, page 45, let us read the statement given by the Shepherd's Rod. It says, accordingly, the medieval union of secular and ecclesiastical powers in the Roman Church gives the key to the interpretation of both the horn and the head, proving that the head which was wounded unto death is figurative of the ecclesiastical part only. For on the leopard like beast, Rome is not represented by either a wounded horn or horned head, but by a wounded head only, which shows that the blow affected not the secular half, the state horn, the state represented by the horn, but only the ecclesiastical half, the church represented by the head. Answerer number 3, page 45. Now, why is it that the Shepherd's Rod says that only half of that ecclesiastical head that had been wounded by Martin Luther? First of all, what is the ecclesiastical head? It is called monosectarian. Now, let us read the statement. Here in 2SR page 114, it says, the nondescript beast has only one horned head, a symbol of a monosectarian system. So, the ecclesiastical head on the nondescript beast, little horned head, is a monosectarian system. And in that monosectarian system, only half had been wounded by Martin Luther. That monosectarian system, we know that that is a religious system, is founded in two fundamental doctrines. And that is immortality of the soul and the Sunday observance, brothers and sisters. Now, let us read now. Page 57 and page 58 in the Great Controversy. It says, the advancing centuries witnessed a constant increase of error in the doctrines put forth from Rome. Even before the establishment of the papacy, the teachings of heathen philosophers had received attention and exerted an influence in the church. Many who professed conversion still clung to the tenets of their pagan philosophy, and not only continued its study themselves, but urged it upon others as a means of extending their influence among the heathen. Serious errors were thus introduced into the Christian faith. Prominent among these was the belief in man's natural immortality and his consciousness in death. This doctrine laid the foundation upon which Rome established the invocation of saints and the adoration of the Virgin Mary. From this sprang also the heresy of eternal torment for the finally impenitent, which was early incorporated into the papal faith. So that is one of the foundation of the Roman Catholicism. And that is the only one that had been wounded by Martin Luther, because Martin Luther cannot won the other foundation of Catholicism, which is the Sunday observance, because he himself is still a Sunday keeper. Or in other words, he has no knowledge concerning Sunday observance. Now, here in the Great Controversy 548 and 549, it says, the theory of the immortality of the soul, the Great Controversy 548 and 549. The theory of the immortality of the soul was one of those false doctrines that Rome, borrowing from paganism, incorporated into the religion of Christendom. Martin Luther classed it with the monstrous fables that form a part of the Roman dunghill of decretals. Commenting on the words of Solomon in Ecclesiastes, that the dead know not anything, the Reformer says, another place proving that the dead have no feeling. There is, said he, no duty, no science, no knowledge, no wisdom there. Solomon judgeth that the dead are asleep and feel nothing at all, for the dead lie there, accounting neither days nor years, but when they are awake, they shall seem to have slept scarce 1 minute. The Great Controversy 548 and 549. So the shepherd's rod is perfect, saying that the only portion of the little hornhead, that mono-sectarian system that had been wounded by Martin Luther, is only half. The other half of the foundation of the Catholicism, that mono-sectarian system, it was not wounded by Martin Luther, neither by all the four great denominations, because all of them were Sunday keepers. And that is why, brothers and sisters, the shepherd's rod can never be mistaken here in tract number 12, page 21 and page 22. It says, the beast 40 and 2-month period falls in the time of ecclesiastical Rome, the empire after pagan Rome, whereas its wounded state symbolizes here during the Protestant period. And we know that the Protestant period began in 1799. So let us read again 2TG 22. Here in 2TG number 22, on page 21 and page 22, it says, this symbolical prophecy is seen to corroborate history. It points out that the Christian church at first suffered martyrdom, shown by the color red. Then followed the dark ages of religion, when the church was in captivity, represented by color black. Following this came the Protestant period. The Protestant period began after the Dark Ages. That is the period of religious freedom, represented by the white team. 2TG 22, page 21 and page 22. Now the shepherd's rod made it so plain, brothers and sisters, that the leopard-like beast wounded state is in the Protestant period. The wounded state of the leopard-like beast is in the Protestant period. Therefore, the illustration of the leopard-like beast, while it is portraying concerning the nondescript beast, little hornhead, we should not, however, forget that the leopard-like beast has its own symbolization. The symbolization that we are portraying pertaining to the nondescript beast, little hornhead, that is not the particular object in view of the leopard-like beast. It is very important to understand, because how could you be able to understand, brothers and sisters, the image of the beast? But which the image of the beast is pointing to the leopard-like beast pre-wounded state. Meaning, that is, brothers and sisters, prior to the Protestant period. That must be from 538 AD to 1798 AD. That is the image of the beast. What beast? Leopard-like beast. Does the leopard-like beast is the papacy? No. Right? The shepherd's rod says, the leopard-like beast is not the papacy. The papacy was only portrayed in the leopard-like beast in the wounded head. But still, we need to distinctly separate the wounded head of the leopard-like beast, which is the particular object in view, and the wounded head of the leopard-like beast, which is the type. Let us distinctly separate the type and the antitype. The type, it was wounded by Martin Luther. And the reason why the shepherd's rod says only half of that ecclesiastical government, which is a monosectarian, had been wounded by Martin Luther, because that monosectarian system is founded in the two fundamental doctrines, Sunday observance and the immortality of the soul. And only the immortality of the soul had been wounded by Martin Luther, not the Sunday observance. Now, brothers and sisters, in track number 8, let us read track number 8 on page 59. It says here, track number 8, page 59. The 5 smooth stones in David's bag, with one of which he slew Goliath, typify the 5-fold power in the antitypical shepherd's bag. The Bible, with one part of which God shall today smite the beast and his image, the nations, the antitypical Goliath. And since we know that it is by his word, in the form of a message, that he shall smite the nations, then obviously the 5 smooth stones represent 5 messages, the last of which to warn the beast, destroy his image, and free God's people from the fear of the heathen. Now, the main subject here is the leopard-like beast and the scarlet-colored beast. Because the scarlet-colored beast is the image of the leopard-like beast. Now, here the voice of inspiration says that, brothers and sisters, very plain, it is the 11th hour message, the message that will wound the beast, the leopard-like beast. Because the scarlet-colored beast had never been wounded. The statement says unharmed. Now, if the one that can wound the leopard-like beast is the 11th hour message, what is the 11th hour message? Here in 2SR page 230 and 231, let us read the statement. It says, what is the message? The 11th hour message is none other than Revelation 18, the loud cry of the third angel, 2SR 230 and 231. And I think every Davidian know the historical event that in 1888, supposed to be, that is the time by which God will send the 11th hour message, but it was muffled because 98% of the Seventh-day Adventists rejected the message. Therefore, God withdrew. But the fact is that they have the glimmering of that message of the 11th hour. And that is why Sister White and P.T. Haunted in 2SR 277 called the message in 1888 as the most precious message delivered by Alonzo Jones and Waggoner. The most precious message. And historically, in 1888, that is the time by which the National Sunday Law had been introduced into the in the 50th Congress in the United States of America. Now let me read to you. It says here, this pamphlet is a report of an argument made upon the National Sunday Bill introduced by Senator Blair in the 50th Congress. It is not, however, exactly the argument that was made before the Senate committee, as there were so many interruptions in the course of my speech that it was impossible to make a connected argument upon a single point. By these questions, etc., my argument was not only forced to take a wider range than was intended when I began to speak, but I was prevented from making the definite argument that I designed to present. I do not speak of these interruptions and counter-arguments by way of complaint, but only to explain why this pamphlet is issued. Nevertheless, it is a fact that while there were 18 speeches before mine, occupying 3 hours, in all of which together there were only 189 questions and counter-arguments by all the members of the committee who were present, I was interrupted by the chairman alone 169 times in 90 minutes, as may be seen by the official report of the hearing, 50th Congress, 2nd Session, Messages and Documents, number 43, pages 73 to 102. A national Sunday law is a question of national interest. While it is true that the Sunday Rest Bill did not become a law, the legislation having died with the expiration of the 50th Congress, it is also true that those who worked for the introduction and passage of that bill are now laying plans to have another national Sunday bill introduced as soon as possible in the 51st Congress, and will do all in their power to secure its enactment into law. So that is very plain, brothers and sisters, according to this reading. Now, let us now ponder deeply. Therefore, the other half of that mono-sectarian system, it was wounded by Alonzo Jones. It was protected beforehand that it is the 11th hour message that will wound the beast, the leopard-like beast. And what is the 11th hour message? 2SR 230 and 231, Revelation 18:1, the loud cry of the third angel. Although in 1888, the loud cry, it was muffled, brothers and sisters, it had been silenced because of their attitude. 98% of the Seventh-day Adventist Church rejected the message. But the fact is, at that time, when the National Sunday Bill was introduced, the other foundation of the monosectarian system, it was not only wounded. The description says, the bill died out, brothers and sisters, on the 50th Congress. So what the shepherds are teaching is perfect. That the wounded state of the leopard-like beast, brothers and sisters, is in the Protestant period.
the other half of the monosectarian system, which was not wanted by Martin Luther. Now, this is now the question. What had been held in February 11, 1929? Is it the wounded part wounded by Martin Luther, or is it the wounded part that wounded by Alonzo Jones? Think it thoroughly. As far as the history is thus concerned, brothers and sisters, February 11, 1929, it is pointing to Italy, Europe. Therefore, the one that had been healed in February 11, 1929, it is the wounded head, the little horn head on the nondescript beast, and not the wounded head of the leopard-like beast. The particular object in view, brothers and sisters. Now, let us read 1SR. Here in 1SR, page 209, he says, "And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world wondered after the beast," Revelation 13, verse 3. It is generally understood among Seventh-day Adventists that since the Italian government granted civil power to the Pope on the 11th day of February 1929 to be the event of the prophetic fulfillment, we shall grant that the interpretation is correct and the deadly wound has been healed. 1SR, page 209. So the statement, brethren, is very plain. The one that had been healed in February 11, 1929, brothers and sisters, it is the wounded head of the nondescript beast, wounded by Martin Luther. Because it points out to Italy, not to the United States of America. The other wounded head, it was wounded not in Europe, but in the United States of America by Alonzo Jones. So we need to study closely when was the exact period of time by which the wounded head of the leopard-like beast, by which it was wounded in the Protestant period, brothers and sisters, in 1888, was healed. Now, I would like to focus first to this portion here, to SR, in page 155. To SR, page 155. So, brothers and sisters, more particularly to all shepherds and believers, let us study this subject, the leopard-like beast, in a very serious manner, brothers and sisters, because we need to comprehend and to be profited by the things that God intended us to understand. Now, here in 2SR, page 155, I would like to read. The destruction is alike of both beast and woman. So concerning the nondescript beast and the woman, it says the destruction of both beast and woman. or the shepherd's rod is plainly telling that the nondescript beast on Daniel chapter 7, it is the woman in the book of Revelation. Now let us read. I would like to begin first this reading. Thus the destruction of the original, the nondescript beast, is a prophecy of the destruction of the woman. So, the original is the nondescript beast, meaning the type. The destruction of the original, the nondescript beast, is a prophecy of the destruction of the woman. And the destruction of the one is the destruction of the other. And at this time, to repeat again, let us distinctly separate the spiritual side and the material side. For example, on the nondescript beast, the material side is pointing in August 11, 1799, when General Bercher, through the command of Napoleon Bonaparte, captured the Pope Pius VI and put into prison into Valence, France. That is the material side. The spiritual side is, it points out to Martin Luther and the Protestantism. And the shepherd's rod admonishes us that we should not overlook the spiritual side. Concerning the destruction of the beast and the destruction of the woman, no, we are not after really concerning the destruction of the beast and the woman, concerning the material side, because at that time, the patient already closed. But we need to study closely the destruction of the beast and the woman on that spiritual side, not on the material side. Now, I would like to read again the statement here. Remember, the shepherd's rod says that the beast is the type, the original, the woman is the antitype. The beast, the nondescript beast on Daniel 7, it is the woman in the book of Revelation. Therefore, the beast is a prophecy, the woman is the revelation. Right? Now, let us read the statement. I think that is found on where's that statement? Saying 161 in 2SR 161. The head of the nondescript beast of Daniel 7 in the burning fire with the woman, as depicted in the chart, represents the same event. The beast is a prophecy, and the woman is the revelation of that prophecy. Now, let us read again, 2SR 161. The head of the nondescript beast, meaning the one who established that system. What system? Monosectarian system. The head of the nondescript beast of Daniel 7 in the burning fire with the woman, as depicted in the chart, represents the same event. The beast is a prophecy, and the woman is the revelation of that prophecy. Now let us go back to 2SR page 155. 2SR page 155. It says here, the destruction is alike of both beast and woman. Furthermore, It is the period under the symbol of the woman riding on the beast that makes an image of the leopard-like in the first stage before wounded, or of the nondescript beast in his second stage. For the 1,260-year period was represented by both beasts. The image is a false religion internationally set up. Now, ponder deeply, brothers and sisters, this reading. When does, first, who makes the image? The two-horned beast. Do not forget that it is the two-horned beast that makes the image. Now, let us read the great controversy. The great controversy on page 400. That's the statement. 445. The third angel's warning is, if any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God. The beast mentioned in this message, whose worship is enforced by the two-horned beast, is the first, the leopard-like beast of Revelation 13. And it says, the papacy. The image to the beast represents that form of apostate Protestantism which will be developed when the Protestant churches shall seek the aid of the civil power for the enforcement of their dogmas. The mark of the beast still remains to be defined. What is the difference between the image of the beast and the image to the beast? The image of the beast is secular. The image to the beast is ecclesiastical. Now, for example, I would like to read to you Story of Redemption. Story of Redemption, page 300. Let's read. 381. The beast and its image. By this first beast is represented the Roman Church, an ecclesiastical body clothed with civil power, having authority to punish all dissenters. The image to the beast represents another religious body clothed with similar powers. What is the image to the beast? Represents another religious body. The image to the beast is religious body. And that is why the shepherd's rod in tract number 12. Let's read. Here in tract number 12. Page 28. Tract number 12. On page 28 it says, the passage, if any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, denotes that all who, after hearing the truth, continue to pay homage either religiously or secularly to the image, shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. So it says either religiously or secularly. So the image of the beast is more pertaining to the secular aspect. But the image to the beast, that is pertaining to the ecclesiastical aspect. Now, brethren, the message of the third angel is addressed first to the 144,000 living saints. Now, let us read the statement in 1888. It says that, no, God will not send a message of warning to avoid worshiping the beast if the beast does not exist. It is illogical, brothers and sisters. It says, by these plain testimonies, we establish the fact that the beast will be destroyed at the second advent. Therefore, we ask, what danger will there be that men will worship the beast at a time when there will be none for them to worship? God will never send an angel or messenger to warn men against the worship of the beast when the beast does not exist. What is the beast? System. And it is represented by the leopard lion, meaning universal system. Now, brothers and sisters, let us go back again to our reading. I think it is very important for us. I would like to read this statement given by the Voice of Inspiration. Let me read to you. Last to the statement. It says, it is entitled Image to the Beast. We are to learn of the fulfillment of the prophecy and be able to detect that from our knowledge of the things of which it is an image. In other words, we are not to get the knowledge of the fulfillment of this prophecy from the prophecy itself alone. What does it mean? The Voice of Inspiration is plainly telling us that, in other words, we are not to get the knowledge of the fulfillment of this prophecy from the time when the material side is appeared. Brothers and sisters, but we are to detect and to learn of the fulfillment of this prophecy from the record of the nature, the spiritual side, the working and the disposition of the beast, of which this is only an image, meaning shadow. For example, brothers and sisters, let us put in a literal realm. Let us illustrate that the beast is like a roaring lion, because that is the description in 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8. The evil is like a roaring lion. Even at the time while the lion is still in a far distant, but you already see the shadow. You already see the movements of the lion. Then you can prepare yourself, because you already see the beast is coming. Of course, if you will wait at the time when the lion arrived, when the beast arrived, that is the time that you escape. There is no more escape. Now, let us read again. It says, so you see, in order to see when these passages are fulfilled, in order to see when they are met, we must be acquainted with the original. We must be acquainted with the beast and well acquainted with it, that when any one of these points appear, we can see where that belongs, because we know where it belongs in the original, and then knowing where it belongs, we can avoid that thing. So we need to see the original. What is the original? During the Dark Ages. Now, let us view first how that original being established during the Dark Ages. According to the Great Controversy, I would like to read here in 575. 575. The Great Controversy, page 575. It says, miracles also were called into requisition. Among other wonders, it was reported that as a husbandman who was about to plow his field on Sunday, clean his plow with an iron. The iron stuck fast in his hand, and for 2 years he carried it about with him, to his exceeding great pain and shame. In page 576, it says, the rule forbade labor from the 9th hour, 3 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, till sunrise on Monday. And its authority was declared to be confirmed by many miracles. It was reported that persons laboring beyond the appointed hour, stricken with paralysis, a miller who attempted to grind his corn, so instead of plow, a torrent of blood came forth, and the mill wheel stood still, notwithstanding the strong rush of water. A woman who placed dough in the oven found it raw when taken out, though the oven was very hot. Another who had dough prepared for baking at the 9th hour, but determined to set it aside till Monday, found the next day that it had been made into loaves and baked by divine power. A man who baked bread after the 9th hour on Saturday found, when he broke it the next morning, that blood started therefrom. By such absurd and superstitious fabrications did the advocates of Sunday endeavor to establish its sacredness. This statement, brothers and sisters, saying absurd and superstitious fabrications, meaning those people who witnessed that miracle happen unto them, it seems that it is not genuine. It seems that it is not real. But the spear prophecy, Alonzo Jones says, it is not the same, brothers and sisters, in the last days, because the miracles that will be performed is genuine. And I remember that reading. Let me see if I could find that reading, saying that the miracles that had been performed by these false prophets are genuine miracles, brothers and sisters. And I would like to read this reading. It is entitled Working Miracles. Working Miracles. I would like to read this reading. It says, all these passages refer to the same period of time. That is, the time just preceding the coming of the Lord and reaching to the coming of the Lord. And that period of time is just now, the time in which we live. The one thing especially marked in each and all of these passages is that in this time, great signs and wonders, miracles, will be wrought expressly under the inspiration of Satan. And it says, one thing especially to be noted about these things is that there will be real miracles. These false Christs and false prophets shall show, not simply pretend to show, but shall show great signs and wonders, those miracles which he had power to do, not simply that he pretended to have power to do. They are the spirits of the devils working miracles, not simply pretending to work miracles. The false prophet that wrought miracles, not the false prophet that pretended to work miracles. And he says, another thing to be noted is that while the miracles and signs and wonders are real, all else is false. There are false Christs, false prophets. It is the false prophet that wrought miracles. Now think it thoroughly, brothers and sisters. And let us ponder deeply this predicted event. I would like to read to you this reading. It says, these propositions are worthy of most serious consideration. They are not only the truth, but they are the truth for these times. For it is certain that diseases are multiplying upon the earth and will multiply. So the offered remedies and means of removing them will multiply. And as we have stated before in these columns, this is one of the chief things employed by Satan in getting power over the people in his war against the church of God. So the predicted miracles that will be performed by the false prophets is to cure the maladies and the diseases of the people. It is not a miracle, unlike during the Dark Ages, that it is highly fabricated. But these miracles are real and genuine. Why is it that they could be able to heal the people? Because the power that they had is the power of Satan. And the one who gave the disease is Satan himself. Now let us read the great controversy. The great controversy. On page 588 and 589. While appearing to the children of men as a great physician who can heal all their maladies, he will bring disease and disaster until populous cities are reduced to ruin and desolation. Or in other words, Sister White is plainly telling that the people did not know that Satan is the one who brings this disease. And He is the one also who will heal all their maladies. Not knowing that millions and thousands already died because of that disease that had been produced by Satan. And it says, even now he is at work in accident and calamities by sea and by land, in great conflagrations, in first tornadoes and terrific hailstorms, in tempests, floods, cyclones, tidal waves, and earthquakes in every place and in 1,000 forms. Satan is exercising his power. He sweeps away the ripening harvest, and famine and distress follow. He imparts to the air. I think this part is very prominent. He imparts to the air a deadly taint, and thousands perish by the pestilence. Would you think the coronavirus that had been spread throughout the whole world, could that be the fulfillment of this predicted event? We need to be watchful, brothers and sisters, because we are really nearing the end of time. The voice of inspiration says, Satan imparts to the air. So this poison, deadly thing, Satan imparts it to the air. And thousands perish by this pestilence. These visitations are to become more and more frequent and disastrous. Destruction will be upon both men and beasts. The great controversy 588 and 589. Now let us go back again to our subject, brothers and sisters. I would like to read this portion saying, it says, is it so? I would like to read this statement. Is it so, then, that with you it is a settled thing that the keeping of the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus is a miracle greater than all other miracles? If so, you will be in no danger of being deceived by a miracle or any number of miracles. But if not, you are in danger of being deceived by the first astonishing thing that occurs to your sight. How do you know that such miracle cometh from God, according to the voice of inspiration? It is easy. The miracles that Jesus Christ performed, He cured the diseases of the people in order that they would be able to obey God's commandment. Brothers and sisters. But if such miracle, brothers and sisters, it leads only to disobey God's commandments, then that miracle can never be of God. Now here in this portion, I would like to read, it says, to employ means that are contrary to the commandments of God in order to get rid of disease that can be removed by conformity to the commandments of God is plainly disloyalty to the commandments of God. And it says, to resort to a miracle that is wrought by a power that is contrary to the commandments of God in order to obtain relief from a disease that can be removed only by a miracle in conformity with the commandments of God is plainly God. To employ means that are contrary to the commandments of God and that bring the individual under a power from which nothing but a miracle of the power and grace of God can deliver him in order to be rid of disease, even by a miracle, is plainly disloyalty to God. Now, although I do not know on the other places of the globe, brothers and sisters. But as I observe here in our country, the consequence of this disease, coronavirus, there are many, if not all, many Sabbath keepers no longer worshiping the Lord during the Sabbath day because of the executive order. No longer allowed, no longer permitted to gather together because of the fear that the virus might spread. Now, in that occurrences, we can easily discern that it is a shadow. It is a shadow, brothers and sisters, of that system that you could no longer worship God. To avoid you to worship God, to avoid you to gather together. The greatest possibility that the prediction of Sister White in the Great Controversy 589 is fulfilling now in our days, this very year. That it is Satan who spread into the air a deadly taint, a deadly poison, that the disease, such pestilence, thousands have been died throughout the whole world. Although we are so thankful that the Lord protect us here, brothers and sisters, in the very place by which we are now proclaiming this message, the statement, brethren, in volume 5, saying that the Sunday movement are canceling the true issue. Here in volume 5, page 452. Let us read the statement here. Volume 5, page 452. While men are sleeping, Satan is actively arranging matters so that the Lord's people may not have mercy or justice. The Sunday movement is now making its way in darkness. The leaders are canceling the true issue, and many who unite in the movement do not themselves see whither the undercurrent is tending. Its professions are mild and apparently Christian, but when it shall speak, it will reveal the spirit of the dragon. Now, in symbolic code, 13 symbolic code, let us read the statement. It says here, 13 symbolic code, number 3 and 4, page 10. All those who are not expecting the confederacy, but instead are expecting next the reassertion of Roman Church supremacy, or the battle of Armageddon, or something else, are going to fall into this snare, for it will appear to them harmless and perhaps even a good thing, but it will be their trap. Now, I would like to read again, 13 symbolic of 3 and 4, page 10. All those who are not expecting the confederacy, but instead are expecting next the reassertion of Roman Church supremacy, or the battle of Armageddon, or something else, are going to fall into this snare, for it will appear to them harmless and perhaps even a good thing, but it will be their trap. example, that predicted event that the agents of Satan will cure the disease and the maladies of the people by which they were suffering. And according to the voice of inspiration, the whole world is suffering a disease by which there is no remedy. Would you think it is not a good thing, brothers and sisters, that the false prophets will perform miracles and heal them, all the maladies of the people? That is a good thing. And here in our country, when the government decided a lockdown, would you think it is not a good thing that the government will be supporting foods to the daily consumption of the people? That is a good thing. But what if the time by which, if we will not obey their order, they will no longer support us? Then for sure, you can immediately discern these occurrences is the predicted event. Now, let us go back to our subject concerning the new part like this. To repeat again, the most important part in this study, in reality, is the spiritual side, brothers and sisters. It is not the material side. We need the absolute protection from our Almighty God. And the only absolute protection is the seal of the living God. No one can harm us if we have that seal, the seal of protection. You remember the statement in Symbolic Code? Let us read. It says here, well, Symbolic Code number 2, page 10, and also on page 20. It says, when God places His seal upon the 144,000, then nobody can hurt them. Do you see then that the winds were held by the angels because the servants of God were not as yet sealed under special protection? What is the winds? The winds points out to the law. When that bill did not yet become a law, the winds did not as yet exist. When the Bible says, hold the winds, meaning, it points out that the winds are already in existence. Because God will not command the angel to hold the winds if there is no winds. The winds represent the mark of the beast system. Brothers and sisters, that is the mark of the beast system. Or in other words, the winds must be pointing to that bill that became a law. That there is a divine command from God that that law will not be implemented not until the 144,000 are completely sealed. And that law was being formulated in the period of time while God's people is sleeping. That's the statement in volume 5, page 452. Now, for example, this is statement in tract number 8. Let's read. Tract number 8 on page 21. Tract number 8, page 21. I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth at the time of the sealing of the 144,000. Now, when does the 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth? At the time of the sealing of the 144,000. I would like to read to you the vision of Sister White in early writings. In early writings, page 38, it says, let us read the 2 paragraphs. Early writings on page 38. I saw 4 angels who had a work to do on the earth and were on their way to accomplish it. Jesus was clothed with priestly garments. He gazed in pity on the remnant, then raised his hands, and with a voice of deep pity cried, my blood, Father, my blood, my blood, my blood. Then I saw an exceeding bright light come from God, who sat upon the great white throne, and was shed all about Jesus. Then I saw an angel with a commission from Jesus swiftly flying to the 4 angels who had a work to do on the earth and waving something up and down in his hand and crying with a loud voice, hold, 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 until the servants of God are sealed in their foreheads. I asked my accompanying angel the meaning of what I heard and what the 4 angels were about to do. He said to me that it was God that restrained the powers and that he gave his angels charge over things on the earth. That the 4 angels had power from God to hold the 4 winds, and that they were about to let them go. But while their hands were loosening and the 4 winds were about to blow, the merciful eye of Jesus gazed on the remnant that were not sealed, and he raised his hands to the Father and pleaded with him that he had spilled his blood for them. Then another angel was commissioned to fly swiftly to the 4 angels and bid them hold until the servants of God were sealed with the seal of the living God in their foreheads. Early writings, page 38. Now let us carefully decipher these 2 paragraphs. Brothers and sisters, sometimes the vision that was given by God is only to illustrate in human language so that we could see the importance of the occurrences. Now let us ponder deeply in this reading and early writings, page 38. First, Sister White says that she saw God the Father sitting on the great white throne. What does it mean when God the Father will sit on the great white throne? In the Bible, where we could find that great white throne? That is in Revelation 20, right? Here in Revelation chapter 20. Let us read. Revelation chapter 20 on verse, let us read the statement. Verse 11. And I saw a great white throne, and him that sat on it, from whose face the earth and the heaven fled away, and there was found no place for them. Revelation 20, verse 11. Now, what does it mean when God the Father will be sitting on the great white throne? Brothers and sisters, the truth is that indicates that it is an executive judgment. It is a time by which the execution will be carried out. So it was illustrated in that vision of the prophet, brothers and sisters. And I think it's found in track number 50. Let us read. In track number 50. Let me see. Track number 15. Hear how our God illustrated that when He will sit on the great white throne, indicates, it says here in track number 15, page 18. The third session, the one during the 1,000 years, is at the great white throne. And what judgment during the 1,000 years? That is executed judgment, brothers and sisters. So the significance that God the Father is sitting on the great white throne, indicating that's supposed to be, that is already the execution. And this is the vision of Sister White. Now, let us read again. It says, I saw 4 angels who had a work to do on the earth, and were on their way to accomplish it. So it is concerning the 4 angels in Revelation chapter 7, having slaughter weapons in their hands. And these 4 angels, they are on their way to execute judgment. But Jesus was clothed with priestly garments, and He gazed in pity on the remnant. Then Jesus Christ raised His hands with a voice of deep pity cried, requesting God the Father, my blood, Father, my blood, my blood. Then according to the voice of inspiration, the pleading of Jesus Christ had been granted by God the Father. Then Jesus Christ immediately commanded the angel. It says, then I saw an angel with a commission from Jesus, swiftly flying to the 4 angels who had a work to do in the earth, and waving something up and down in his hand. What is the thing that the angel is waving up and down? That screw. What is that screw, brothers and sisters? Now then it says, Who are they, the remnant? It says, the merciful eye of Jesus gazed on the remnant that were not sealed. Why is it that they are already called remnant in spite of the fact that they were not as yet sealed? Now, I would like to read to you here in 1SR, page 103, 102. 1SR 102. The definition of remnant is that which is left after the separation, removal, or destruction of a part. Let us read again. 1SR 102. The definition of remnant is that which is left after the separation, removal, or destruction of a part. Now, for sure, the vision in Earl Writings, page 38, it could not be destruction. They were not remnant after the destruction because at this time they were not as yet sealed. Now, that statement, remnant, must be applied only removal. Removal of what? Removal of the names of the wicked in the heavenly sanctuary in the Lamb's Book of Life. Plainly indicating in this study, brothers and sisters, that the first aspect of the judgment is bookwork. Blotting out of names. That before the sealing of the 144,000 begins, all the names of the wicked in the heavenly sanctuary are already completely blotted out. So there are two aspects of the sealing. The sealing mentioned here is the sealing of the angel, the sealing angel. The most important part is first the sealing message, the present truth under the seventh seal. Because once your name will be blotted out in the Lamb's Book of Life, in the heavenly sanctuary, why is it that your names have been blotted out? Because you rejected the present truth. The only way that you can receive the seal. The sealing angel, that is only the final seal. The seal of immortality. And who are they to be sealed by the sealing angel? Those names that remain in the Lamb's Book of Life. Why is it that their names remain? Because they received the present truth. Now ponder deeply, brothers and sisters. I would like to read again that statement in White House Recruiter. Because it is closely connected with the beast study. And it is under the description of the leopard-like beast. Revelation 13, verse 8. We know that the leopard-like beast is from Revelation 13, verse 1 to 10. Look at verse 8. Under the description of the leopard-like beast, it says here, and all that dwell upon the earth, now let me ask you the question. Does the earth mentioned here is symbolical or literal? Revelation 13 is a symbolical prophecy. If the sea in verse 1 is symbolical, then the earth in verse 8 must be symbolical. Let us always apply that statement. In track number 5, page 26. Symbolical or literal? Which? That is the question. Track number 5, page 26. Symbolical or literal, which only when this question is rightly answered will we have the correct interpretation to unlock this great symbolical treasure house of truth. In page 41, for if every term is not symbolical, how shall we differentiate those which are from those which are not? And how shall we know by which to define the truth? Track number 5, page 41. Now, let us answer now the question. Revelation 13, is it symbolical or literal? If verse 1 is symbolical, then verse 8 must be symbolical. So the earth mentioned here must be symbolical earth. So the focal point of the leopard-like beast is the symbolical earth. Who will make the image of the beast? United States of America, right? We already read. In the Great Controversy 445. It is the United States of America who will make or will form the image of the beast. And who is that beast? The leopard-like beast. And this is the statement in Revelation 13 verse 8. And all that dwell upon the earth, all of them, shall worship him. Who is the pronoun him? Satan, the devil. Demon worship. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb, slain from the foundation of the world. There are two classes of people that will not obtain salvation. Those people whose names have been blotted out in the Lamb's book of life, and those people whose names never been entered into the pages of the Lamb's book of life. Brothers and sisters, according to the voice of inspiration, there are people by whose names never been entered. I would like to read it here in 2SR page 160. The names of some who once appeared in it were blotted out, while the names of others were never entered between its pages. I would like to read again 2SR 116. The names of some who once appeared in it were blotted out, while the names of others were never entered between its pages. So there are two classes of people that will never obtain salvation. Those people by which supposed to be, they have already chance to be a part of the saved ones, but they allowed themselves by which their names will be blotted out. But there are people whose names never been entered in the Lamb's book of life. Now, I would like to read White House Recruiter on page 11. It says, White House Recruiter, page 11. What is of first and supreme importance to each, however, is to know for a surety that his name is written in the book. To have this most blessed assurance, one must first know what will keep one's name out of the book and what will put it in. Let us read again. White House Recruiter, page 11. what is of first and supreme importance to each of us, however, is to know for a surety that our names is written in the book. And to have this most blessed assurance, one must first know what will keep one's name out of the book and what will put it in. The answer of, there is only one answer to that question. The only way that our names will be assuredly written in the Lamb's Book of Life and it will never be blotted out, it is by acceptance of present truth. And also, the surest way that our names will be blotted out in the Lamb's Book of Life, rejecting present truth. Sinning against the Holy Ghost. According to track number 3, on page 7, that not every name, track number 3, page 7, that not every name that has been entered in the Lamb's books will be retained there, is borne out with sad conclusiveness by the following scriptures. And the Lord said unto Moses, whosoever hath sinned against me, him will I blot out of my book. Exodus 32:33. And if any man shall take away from the words of the book of this prophecy, God shall take away his part out of the book of life, and out of the holy city, and from the things which are written in this book. Revelation 22, verse 19. Track number 3, page 7. So in this reading, the shepherds had made it so plain, whose names to be blotted out in the Lamb's Book of Life? All of them who sinned against God. Those who committed sin against God, brothers and sisters. And that is rejecting present truth. Because rejecting present truth is a sin against the Holy Ghost. Let's read again to SR 198. The rejecting of light and present truth is the sin against the Holy Ghost. And whosoever speaketh a word against the Son of Man, it shall be forgiven him. But whosoever speaketh against the Holy Ghost, present truth, it shall not be forgiven him, neither in this world, neither in the world to come. Our attitude towards present truth would either make a tree good and its fruit good, or else make the tree corrupt and its fruit corrupt. For the tree is known by his fruit. Thus, present truth has the power to change the individual and to fit him for eternal life, which is the seal of the living God. So rejection of present truth is sinning against the Holy Ghost. And if you sin the Holy Ghost, your name will be blotted out in the Lamb's Book of Life. And this is always the result, brothers and sisters. As far as the shepherd's rod is thus concerned, it says here, let us read 2SR page 104 and also 103. But in 104 it says, prejudice with dependence upon men, in confidence of having all the truth, and that there is need of none, has devoured more souls than any trap ever devised by the enemy of mankind. The class who accept the decisions of others without investigating for themselves and refuse to be interested in hearing and reasoning the scriptures have been deceived concerning present truth in every age. had been deceived concerning present truth in every age. Consequently, therefore, the greatest danger of the people has not their listening to error, but rejecting present truth. Tract number 3, page 10 and page 11. Consequently, the greatest danger of the people has not been their listening to error, but rather their rejecting present truth. Because the saints of God in all ages are sealed with present truth. And whatever that present truth is, that is the seal. 1 SR page 28. According to these scriptures, which are plainly stated, we must conclude that the saints of God are sealed with present truth in all ages. And whatever that present truth is, that is the seal. And that is why in page 29 it says, the 144,000 having this seal are also marked, sealed by the angel of Revelation 7, which is the same as the one of Ezekiel 9. In other words, it may be termed a double seal. 1 SR page 29. Now, think it thoroughly, brothers and sisters. When does the four winds, there is a divine command to hold the four winds. According to the voice of inspiration, it says, it is at the time of the sealing of the 144,000. We already read that statement, track number 8, page 21. That the time that Jesus Christ gave a divine commission to the four angels to hold the four winds, that is in the time of the sealing of the 144,000. In the Vision of Early Writings, page 38, at the time when Jesus Christ gave the divine commission to the four angels to hold the four winds, what is the term used by inspiration? It says, the remnant. Why is it that Jesus Christ pleaded to God the Father to hold the four winds? Because the remnant were not yet sealed. Who are they, the remnant? The 144,000. But why is it that they are called the remnant? We already read in 1 SR 102. What constitutes the remnant? 1 SR 102. And the definition of remnant is that they that are left after separation, removal, or destruction. But it could not be destruction because at that time, the 144,000 are not yet sealed, but they are called remnant. Why is it that they are called remnant? Because they are the only ones that remain in the Lamb's Book of Life concerning the living. Why is it that their names remain in the Lamb's Book of Life? Because they accept the present truth. And those people who rejected the present truth, their names had been blotted out in the Lamb's Book of Life. Therefore, when Jesus Christ commanded the man with the writer inkhorn to seal the 144,000, that is the final seal, because the 144,000 has a double seal. But who are they to be sealed by the man with the writer inkhorn? That's something in the hand of the angel waving something up and down that is containing the names of all who are sealed with present truth. And since they are sealed with present truth, they will be finally sealed with a seal of immortality by that sailing angel. Brothers and sisters. But at that time, the first aspect of the judgment, which is the bookwork, already finished. And that is the reason that they are called the remnant. Now, I would like to read 1 TG. Here in 1 TG, number 6, page 38. 1 TG number 6, page 38, it says, "It is obvious that they escape the destruction of these sinners in the church." Isaiah 4 verse 3, "And it shall come to pass that he that is left in Zion, and he that remaineth in Jerusalem, shall be called holy, even everyone that is written among the living in Jerusalem." And then it says, "Only the holy ones, those whose names are left written in the book." So it points out to the heavenly sanctuary. Only the holy ones, those whose names are left written in the book, escape the destruction that falls upon the wicked in the church. Only they constitute the remnant, the ones that are left. Slaughtering is the executive judgment, the material side. The spiritual side is the bookwork in the heavenly sanctuary. Who are they that will be spared from the destruction of the wicked? Only those whose names left written in the Lamb's Book of Life. Therefore, once your names will be blotted out in the Lamb's Book of Life, then you are destined for destruction. And that is why while studying the beast study, we need to connect Christ's mediatorial work in the heavenly sanctuary, brothers and sisters, because that is the two main subject of the third angel's message. Concerning Christ's mediatorial work in the heavenly sanctuary, the plan of redemption, as well as the revelation of the beast, how Satan tried to the utmost of his ability to hide from the understanding of God's people Christ's mediatorial work in the heavenly sanctuary. But I would like to use the words used by inspiration. But thank the Lord. It says here in Consecrated Way to Christian Perfection, on page 104, "But that imposture is not to last forever. Thank the Lord. This great truth of the priesthood, ministry, and sanctuary of Christianity is not to be hid forever from the eyes of the church and the world. The mystery of iniquity arose, and so hid from the world the mystery of God, that all the world followed its wandering." Revelation 13 verse 3 and 4. "But the day comes when the mystery of iniquity shall be exposed, and the mystery of God in its own truth and purity shall shine forth once more, never more to be hid, but to accomplish its great purpose and be completely finished. For it is written that in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when he shall begin to sound, the mystery of God should be finished, as yet declared to his servants, the prophets." Revelation 10 verse 7. Thank God, brothers and sisters, according to this reading. Because there is an appointed time by which the mystery of the plan of redemption will be completely unfolded, and the mystery of iniquity will be completely exposed. And I think it is the message of Revelation 18:1. It says here in 2SR page 231, I would like to read the reading. Thus the message of the third angel will be proclaimed as the time comes, for it is to be given with greatest power. The Lord will work through humble instruments, leading the minds of those who consecrate themselves to His service. The laborers will be qualified rather by the unction of His Spirit than by the training of literary institutions. Men of faith and prayer will be constrained to go forth with holy zeal, declaring the words which God gives them. The sins of Babylon will be laid open, the fearful result of enforcing the observance of the church by civil authority, the inroads of spiritualism, the stealthy but rapid progress of the papal power, all will be unmasked. All will be unmasked, meaning exposed. 2SR page 231. And the only medium chosen by God to lighten the earth, meaning to guide the 144,000, to lighten their understanding with such great deception, is through the symbolization of the beast and also through the types of woman and the temple. It says in 2SR page 10, while the enemy has succeeded in confusing the written word, God lightens the earth with His glory by these symbolic revelations, and by which He discloses the entire truth and at the same time uncover the traps of the devil. Thus, through types and symbols, He makes wise the simple and confound the prudent by showing that where there is no type, there is no truth. 2SR page 10. Now, brethren, do not wait until that event by which there is no more chance. When all the names will be blotted out, brothers and sisters, then there will be no more chance. Here in 1TG number 11, page 11. 1TG 11, page 11. So only those who survive the judgment for the living in the house of God. This message, judgment for the living, brothers and sisters, according to the voice of the inspiration, it will only last for 6 months. Brothers and sisters, only for 6 months. And then, brothers and sisters, the sealing angel will then begin to seal the 144,000. Now, I would like to read the statement. So only those who survive the judgment for the living in the house of God. 1 Peter 4:17. Those whose names are not blotted out from the book. Who are they that can survive the judgment for the living? Only those whose names are not blotted out from the book will comprise the church, among whom are to be 144,000 sons of Jacob. It says, and when Michael stands up, then those whose names are left in the book will be delivered from the trouble such as never was. They are the remnant, the ones who escape alive from the judgment for the living in the house of God. Thus the antitypical temple is to be built as described in Ezekiel 40 to 43, and the cities are to be spread abroad. 1TG number 11 on page 11. Brethren, it is high time now that we need to study the entire Shepherd's Run publications. And it is, I think, It is a waste of time if we are quarreling, bickering each other, brothers and sisters, contending who is the true movement, while in reality, we are all wrong, brothers and sisters. But rather, it is high time now to seriously deal the subject concerning Christ's mediatorial work in the heavenly sanctuary. That is the focal point of the message. And the beast revelation is only a revelation to inform us how the devil works in confusing God's people concerning Christ's mediatorial work in the heavenly sanctuary. So if we could be able to discern how Satan works, at the same time, we need also to study closely how God works the plan of redemption. Here in track number 15, the statement says, let me read to you. In track number 15, on page 57 and page 58, it says, thus it is that while the first four seals carry us through the periods of the day in which the works of men are made manifest, the last three seals carry us through the day of God, the day in which His truth and His works are made manifest. Now, this is pointing to the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary. That the unfoldment of truth during the period of the first four seals is more pertaining to the manifestation of the works of men. But the works of men mentioned there is the man of sin in heaven. But in the period during the proceedings of the last three seals, that is the period that God will reveal God's works. What is God's work? Christ's mediatorial work in the heavenly sanctuary. That is the plan of salvation. So that is the entire revelation of the third angel's message. The work of Satan, represented by different symbolization of the beast. But the absolute fact is that the last two beasts, universal beasts, the leopard like and the scarlet color, is the scheme of the devil that he employed in the last generation of men to deceive even the very elect, the 144,000, if it were possible. According to 1 SR 214. Yes, it is possible. Very possible that you will be deceived if you will not dwell on this symbolical prophecy and this typological prophecy and this parabolical prophecy. I would like to remind again, brothers and sisters, that this is the only medium, these three chosen medium given by God to us that can defeat the enemy, which is the devil. You cannot defeat the enemy unless you will utilize these three chosen mediums given and bestowed by God unto us. Because God Himself knows that Satan is more powerful than we of ourselves, brothers and sisters. But the Word of God is even more powerful than Satan. But it was declared, written words can be misconstrued, but symbols cannot. Thus making it possible not only to the learned, but even to the unlearned, to immediately distinguish the difference between truth and error. 2SR 288. So written words can be easily misconstrued, but symbols cannot. But typological truths cannot. Parabolical prophecy cannot. God knoweth beforehand that these three chosen medium employed by God, the devil has no advantage. Brothers and sisters, he could gain no advantage. And the statement used by inspiration in one is our pocket edition, page 73, completely disarm the enemy of inspiration. So hoping, brothers and sisters, we will abide listening and viewing this program. And to repeat again, we need to study closely the leopard likeness in all its symbolization. And let us distinctly separate the period of time by which that is the formation and the period of time by which that is the time that he is now assuming the period of the nondescript beast, first stage, and the period of the leopard like this itself. When the period of the leopard like this itself begins, the seven heads exist the same period of time. What does it mean? Meaning that the seven heads represent a religious system, a religious organization by which that seven heads, they were the pioneer. The statement exists the same period of time. Why? Because these seven heads, they are the one who created, who established that system, that ecclesiastical government. And what is the purpose? To be governed by the woman. Brothers and sisters, it is a mystery. There is a supernatural power, brothers and sisters. I remember the statement here on 2SR. Let me read to you. That there is a supernatural power. It says here. And 2SR on page 122. Any, it says, 2SR 122, any so-called Christian organization handing out false doctrines under an appearance of virtue evidently is governed by the power of the woman. What is the power of the woman? For sure that it cometh from Satan. The power of the woman is the power of Satan. The power of the beast is the power of Satan. It is the dragon who gave them the power. Right? In Revelation 13, on verse, I think verse 3, it says here, verse 4, Revelation 13, verse 4, and they worshiped the dragon which gave power unto the beast. Who gave the power unto the beast? It is the dragon. Revelation 13, verse 4. The same with the woman. It is also the dragon. So all the Christian organization, by which handing out false doctrines under an appearance of virtue, that is the strongest evidence that in reality, there is a supernatural power that governed them, and that supernatural power is the same supernatural power that governed the woman in Revelation 17. So it is the great controversy between Christ and Satan, the power of Satan versus the power of God, brothers and sisters. And the only way that you could detect the power of Satan is by studying the written Word of God. Can you imagine this statement in 2SR 121? It says, millions with strong mental faculties, men who appear as giant among the inhabitants of the earth, have fallen helpless victims in her trap. I would like to read again. Millions with strong mental faculties, men who appear as giants among the inhabitants of the earth, have fallen helpless victims in her trap. 2SR page 121. And that is why B.T. Hotep says, no, our human wisdom, no, it is only black as darkness, brothers and sisters. Here in 2SR 263, my brethren, to obey the word of God and be true to principle for your own good is not asking too much of you. Will you let self and sin rob you of a crown of life? Your human wisdom and worldly knowledge will prove to be as black as darkness itself if you should allow the wily fool to rob you of the celestial bliss that should be yours throughout the ceaseless ages of eternity. Thank you very much, brethren, for listening and viewing this program. We will continue this subject on our next episode. May the good Lord bless you and have a wonderful evening.